Hey, this is Sean with the Go Tennis Podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com and get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today, Coach Ben wants to talk about creating a habit of scheduling rest days. Ben, you ready to talk youth sports?
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right, today, Coach Ben wants to ask the question, what does a good rest day look like? So, Ben, what does a good rest day look like?
All right. Glad you asked, Sean.
Yes.
Now, this is one I have to heat check myself on too, because as you know, I love to pack the schedule with athletic development activities. But I have to remember that rest and recovery is part of athletic development, right? Is part of our long term development and readiness to compete. And so I came across an article recently by Driveline Baseball, and it was talking about in season velocity, throwing velocity for baseball players, and how these players were complaining that in the middle of their season, they were noticing that their throwing velocity had dropped. So, just to put that in layman's terms, that means you're throwing the ball slower than you normally would, or what your maximum miles per hour you can throw the ball. Now you're not able to reach that. And these players were like, how can that possibly be? I did all these off-season workouts. I did this very meticulous and thoughtful build up to be able to ready for competition. I'm playing a lot of baseball now. My arm feels great. Why am I throwing the ball slower than I had been in the past? And long story short, to save you several pages of research and reading, what it came down to was rest and recovery. And simply put, these players were not preparing themselves for the next day as they should have been. And a lot of it honestly had to do with sleep and nutrition. So basically, they weren't eating right or eating well enough, and they weren't getting good sleeping habits to be prepared for their next baseball game.
And in that case, this is different from previous conversations we've had I think there was one we talked about taking advantage of inclement weather days. And that's, okay, look, we've got a day we can't do something. Let's go play putt-putt for fun. Let's go to do the monkey bars. Or in this case, maybe it is scheduling something that is different. So more like the periodization conversation that we had,
Yeah, totally
where it
like
is,
the periodization. Totally
yeah.
like
So
the
we're putting
periodization
in the rest
conversation.
day intentionally.
Right, where the one we did several weeks ago on taking advantage of downtime, let's say your game or practice is rained out, or at that point, if it's too cold and you're frozen out, then what can I do at home, at home gym, or go get it in an indoor batting cage or indoor court if you have access to indoor court, and get some extra reps in, get a leg up, if you will, when everyone else is rained out. Or we talked about in that episode, if you remember, about the parent side, that do your work. Like if you're rained out or your kid's game is canceled, maybe the work that you're going to do on Thursday, Friday, do that in the front end of the week, so that when you do have a game to play, or your child has a game to play, you're able to then easily go see that game, because you're not having to do the work that you do. If you're, some people are hourly oriented, so you work, the hours that you're scheduled, it doesn't really matter. Some of us are more task or project oriented. I can do a little bit of this project and get ahead of schedule on it. That way I can be ready for my kid's game and go see my kid's game. And so that was the point of that conversation. This one is more, like you said, about periodization and scheduling, like purposefully scheduling a rest day. This is my athlete, whether it's my own child, whether it's a player I'm working with. This is the rest day for them. And here's some things that we're going to do within that rest day.
Now, how does this compare to the concept that I've subscribed to at times in my life, which I do now actually as well, but it might just be because of my advanced maturity. I won't say age, where I always assume the rest day is going to be given to me. So, as an example, I do my daily push-ups and I do my exercises, and I don't just say, you know what, I feel like taking today off because I'm going to schedule. I don't do anything on Sundays. I don't have to schedule that because, in my opinion, that rest day is going to come whether it's, I got a little bit of an injury in my neck, I'm not going to do it today, or I really do feel tired, or as is recently on spring break, you know what? I didn't do any push ups because you know what? I was on spring break. I decided I was going to take some downtime in that. Where does this fall in that, where this is just the almost over scheduling of what we're doing, where we really do need to make sure there is downtime?
Yeah, I mean, if you're somebody like real simply, rest day is built into your workout program, your training program, right? So if you're a guy that does push-ups every day, I wouldn't suggest that you do push-ups every day. I would, from my experience, doing push-ups every day, at some point it's going to be the law of diminishing returns. Are you really going to be gaining any more by doing 7 days of push-ups versus 6 days of push-ups? Maybe on that seventh day, you don't do push-ups and you do more stretching exercise. Maybe I do some pec stretches. I stretch my abdomen. Maybe I do some foam rollers, right, to roll out my back and shoulder and chest muscles so that my body can recover and prepare. And then the next day you can actually do more push-ups than you did before because now your body has taken a self-check. I'm resting, I'm recovering, and I use those two terms interchangeably. Rest doesn't mean we completely shut down and do nothing and eat ice cream and watch movies all day. Not to say that's bad to
Sounds
do.
great.
Not great, but not but it's more of a purposeful. Okay, I do work out a ton, right? I do high intensity workouts. So on my rest or recovery day, I'm gonna do lower intensity, maybe a little different. I mentioned stretching because that's something that's always a part of my routine. Stretching and band work. We work with our throwing athletes. They whether it's serving in tennis or throwing in baseball or softball, we always recommend them do their band exercises. Do their bands, do their they have a set of band routines that they do with a J band. Do your band routines, maybe do some light throwing, but again, the volume and the intensity is so low, but it helps keep your body in check and ready to go the next time you go out to compete or do have a really high intense training session.
So I should write on my calendar. And on the seventh day, Sean rests and
Yeah,
does his
exactly. Right,
and
right,
does
right, right.
Pilates, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, mix it up, but I don't think you need to do that many push-ups each day. But
Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing a lot of push-ups. I mean, it's not I'm not hurting myself here. So in that case, I want to be able to add in the things that give me balance. So where rest is part of that balance, my assumption is no one stretches enough except maybe Novak Djokovic. So we've got certain aspects of what we do, especially for males, right? I mean, no more push-ups. I need to get the arms.
yeah,
We have that mentality, or whatever the personality type is, that I need to go run longer, further, faster to get fitter. Well, sometimes rest is the right answer.
yeah. I mean, recovery is definitely part of development. It's in part of improvement, and any sports scientist, any athletic trainer is going to tell you that. And so, stretching is a huge part of that. Whatever your stretching routine is, or come up with some simple stretches to get your hamstring stretched out, your hips stretched out, your back stretched. If you're a rotational athlete, some counter rotation, things like that. But also, let's talk about the nutrition side of things. That's a huge thing and something that we talk about as being important, but with young kids, we often forget, right? It's super not to say you can't have pizza nights, not to say you can't enjoy Chick-fil-A, but if you're preparing for, you say you're a baseball player, a softball player, and you're playing tournaments, and you're going to be out in the hot sun this weekend for hours upon hours playing games. You're a tennis player, you're going to have two matches at least on Saturday, and hopefully you make it through the draw, and you're going to play on Sunday. So it could be a long weekend for you. Again, still out in the hot sun, have a good meal and eat something that's high in protein, something that's hopefully cooked well, whether it's at a restaurant or you cook yourself. Have some vegetables, have some fruits, those sorts of things that hydrate a lot, right? I used to tell my players all the time the hydration doesn't start when you walk on the court in the first moment you warm up and you're, oh, I'm pretty thirsty here. I just had my 5 minute warm up. It starts the night before, 24 hours before. Um, and so we used to have urine checks of players where, like, if your urine was yellow, you need to keep drinking, right? Keep hydrating until that pee is as clear as the stuff that you put in your body, which is the water. Um, but yeah, stuff like that. I think we talk about nutrition, we speak about nutrition, but we don't exercised it, if you will, enough. I mean, one thing I like to do on my rest days is a good meal. I love grilling. I love my big green egg, and we do that as a family. I will get out there with usually steaks or chicken. So I'll grill steaks. I'll grill chicken. I got the gas grill going because my kids they don't like the smoky. They like the smoky flavor in the meat. They don't like the smoky flavor in the vegetables. So the vegetables have to be on the gas grill, which is fine. I need that space anyways. And oftentimes I'll cook a ton of food, like um, usually Sunday nights is kind of our rest night, if you will, unless there's a game scheduled or something like that. But I'll try to cook a bunch of food, and then they can eat on that food for the rest of the week, to help supplement their nutrition throughout the week. So we don't have to go grab a quick burger at McDonald's. I don't have
Meal
to
prep
feed
is
them.
big.
Yeah, I don't have to give them some processed meal for lunch or dinner because I didn't have time. We eat a ton of leftovers because we try to cook a lot of food on the front end of the week.
Yeah, and stop with the cereals in the morning. It's just I think it's just lazy. Like give the kids eggs, give them some protein, give them something that's actually healthy and useful. And
Yeah, my
nutrition.
kids love sausage and eggs. I mean,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I actually learned it by I learned it sort of by necessity, if you will. A few years ago, my wife and I were in Costa Rica, and we went down to the local market. I got some chorizo, got some eggs. We just want to cook. Usually, when we go on vacation, we eat breakfast at home. To your point, and it's usually eggs and some sort of meat, usually sausage or bacon. And then we're out and about. We'll eat somewhere for lunch, and we'll split the nights. Some nights we'll cook, some nights we'll go out to a nice restaurant. We're on vacation, but breakfast is always at home and or wherever we're staying. So we literally go to this Verbo. We're in Costa Rica. Things are limited, and I literally have this Verbo we're staying at has one pan, like literally has one pan. Okay, so I'm like, well, what do I do, man? I mean, we're like, all right, whatever. So I just I throw the chorizo in. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw and forgive me, home, if you already know this. Went threw the eggs on top of there. Best breakfast I ever had. I mixed the chorizo with the eggs,
Yep.
and so now that's like become the staple in our house. It's usually sausage, not chorizo, but break the sausage up, throw it on the pan, saute it up, and then when it's ready, you throw the eggs in there, and we eat eggs and sausage pretty much almost every morning of the week.
Yeah, and that's a great way to go about it. And moving to sleep. We talk about nutrition, we talk about stretching, moving to sleep, getting the kids to bed if it's a kid, or usually in this case is what we're talking about. Getting them to bed at a decent time, getting them off the phone sooner rather than
Yeah.
later before it's time for bed. The suggestion is always 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And I remember in high school, I don't think any of us ever got 8 to 10 hours.
No, we weren't. And now it's even worse because like you said, in my house we have a rule that, excuse me, phones have to be downstairs. My kids' bedrooms are upstairs. Um, phones are downstairs at a certain time, and then you actually go to bed. So you don't have we have alarm clocks. Don't give me that BS that I have to use my
Yep.
phone for an alarm clock. I use my young employees. You say it all the time. Have this same conversation with them about not getting enough sleep before a work day. Well, I have to use I have to use my phone for my alarm clock, and then Sarah texted me at 11 p.m. I had to talk to her a little bit, and look, I get stuff happens, right? But shut it down.
Yeah.
You know, shut it down. And so, yeah, I think 8 hours of sleep's a good routine to have. And then let them sleep on days that you don't have anything to do. So it might be their rest day if they don't have to go to school. Let them sleep. There's nothing wrong, especially these teenagers. They need a lot of rest and recovery. And look, man, if it's a Saturday and they don't have a game until the afternoon and they want to sleep till 10 o'clock, let them.
Yeah.
Let them. And when my kids were babies, we always, said that's when babies grow, is when they're asleep. So let's let them sleep as long as possible. Plus, it makes it easier, as parents too, right?
I was gonna say,
You
my
know.
wife says the same thing. I'm like,
But
sleep,
but no,
go to sleep.
seriously, I mean, sleep in real, like, real sleep, right? We're not talking about you're texting your friends while you're trying to nod off, or you're watching something on your screen that's close to your face, right? I mean, often we'll put a movie on. My wife's jokes always like, which movie we're gonna watch, or which movie am I gonna go to sleep to tonight?
Yep.
You know, uh, so I can't remember the last time she actually finished a movie that we were watching, but that stuff like that where you're truly going to sleep. My kids still have their night lights, their sleep things. My son doesn't use it as much. My daughter definitely uses it. The night light, the soft music that's playing to help her go to sleep. But yeah, if you don't have anything the next morning, let that kid sleep in. Let them get that rest that they need.
Yep. Yep, I agree. And there's ways to do it right. There's ways to do it wrong. A lot of it is going to narrow it down within your family, within that dynamic. But some of these things are changes to be made. Some of these are going to be cultural changes. I love the phone downstairs, or there's a time to say, you know what, the Wi-Fi happens to shut off at 8 p.m. or whatever those things we do as a family that we can suggest to others and say, hey, if we really want to change the culture of the household toward better sleep and healthier productivity, these are some good ideas. Not everything's right for everybody, of course.
Yeah. But I definitely think the focus on picking the last thing I'll say here, picking a designated rest day if you can. It doesn't mean you don't do your sport. It might mean you do another sport. We talked about finding what else. We have an episode about what else did you do this week. That might be your secondary or third sport that you do. That might be what you do on your quote rest day. As long as it's not too intense, right? I'm not saying
Right.
if your third sport is cross country and you've got a soccer match tomorrow, don't go.
Right.
Not your rest day can't be go
Right.
running 5 miles, right? That's
My third sport is chess, so I'm
yeah,
good.
there you go. Perfect. It's good mentally,
Yeah.
right? That would be a really good sport. But taking care of your bodies, a light workout is always good. I always like Fridays were always my rest day before tennis tournaments when I played competitively in juniors and even in college and then after college. And so the day before the tournament, I should say, it was usually Friday. The day before the tournament started was my rest day. And I would still do stuff. I'd go jump some rope, maybe go work on my serve a little bit. I'd hit 25 or 30 serves. I wouldn't hit, 100 serves, right? If I had a hitting partner, I might go hit some a little bit, do some volleys. I might work through some points that I like to play. My coach, I had a coach used to call it your perfect point. Like, what's the perfect point? And setting that perfect point up for yourself and go. So we just kind of work through those routines, and then definitely get a really really good meal. I think I always had a turkey sandwich for lunch during tournaments. That was always my go-to. But having and I didn't like bananas. Bananas were a really big thing for fast. I hated bananas, so I usually ate more of the fruits with a lot of water, and I made a ton of watermelon, ton of cantaloupe, ton of blueberries, and grapes. Used to always keep grapes in my bag. Love to eat those, and it made me feel good during matches. But the nutrition side, the rest side, get a good sleep, focus on nutrition, get those foods that are high in protein, those meats. If you do eat meat, those meats that are high in proteins, those vegetables and fruits, and you know, I think that'll be a big difference. You'll see a big difference in that purposeful rest day to prepare, not just a day off, but it's a day of preparation for what you're going to face in the next few days.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Ben, this has been Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hesley. Thanks. We'll see you again next week.
Happy recovery, everybody.